Video games have used voice acting talents for numerous generations. And while there are some interesting examples where it didn't quite land, there are also many situations where iconic roles have catapulted the voice acting talent to new levels of stardom. David Hayter, for example, embodies Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid franchise. And although James Arnold Taylor is now known for playing Ratchet and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Tidus from Final Fantasy X remains as one of his most notable roles. Today, voice acting is a huge industry, with the likes of Matt Mercer, Yuri Lowenthal and Jennifer Hale being lauded for their talents by millions and becoming certified celebrities in their own right. But that wasn't always the case, and when voice acting was more in its infancy, it wasn't too uncommon for video game publishers to call on well-known celebrities to lend their voices to prolific roles, including the likes of Patrick Stewart and Liam Neeson, who appeared in The Elder Scrolls 4 and Fallout 3 respectively, and Kristen Bell, who appeared as Lucy in Assassin's Creed. In fact, Square had once planned to take this notion to a whole new level, as before James Arnold Taylor and Hedy Burris were cast as Tidus and Yuna, two Hollywood A-listers were actually signed on in the lead roles. But even though Square changed their minds in that instance, as they did not want to have the actors' popularity eclipse the popularity of the characters themselves, that doesn't mean they still haven't had plenty of Hollywood stars who have lent their talents to the Final Fantasy franchise over the years. So, strap yourselves in as we run through 7 of the biggest celebrities who have voiced Final Fantasy characters, and we're going to kick things off with the American beauty herself, Mina Savari. Aerith Gainsborough stands as one of the most popular and beloved characters in Final Fantasy history, and this status was bestowed long before she was given a voice. Over the past 2 decades though, numerous voice actors have taken up the mantle of voicing Aerith, with Brianna White serving as the incumbent, having voiced the character in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Crisis Core Reunion, and reprising the role for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But 4 other actors have lent their voices to Aerith prior to Brianna White, and in the initial sense, the role was played by someone who was an up-and-coming star. Whereas Square sought to go with lesser-known actors for Final Fantasy X, they took the opposite approach with Kingdom Hearts, perhaps because of the involvement of Disney. Alongside a whole host of star names, including the likes of Haley Joel Osment, Hayden Panettiere and Billy Zane, this saw Mandy Moore, who had just starred in The Princess Diaries and released an album that sold over 1.5 million copies worldwide, cast as Aerith. 3 years later, another project came to light that would see Aerith voiced. And although some of the voice actors from Kingdom Hearts were retained, such as Steve Burton, who voiced Cloud, others were not. It saw Lance Bass replaced by George Newbern as Sephiroth, and Mandy Moore was replaced by Mina Savari. Savari had been an internationally known actress and model since before the turn of the millennium, projected to stardom through her roles in American Beauty and the first 2 American Pie movies. By 2005, even though Savari's star had begun to fade, she was still a pretty big name, and after either seeing something they liked or having contractually tied her in for both projects, Savari reprised her role as Aerith, appearing in Kingdom Hearts 2 a year later. However, despite her star power, Savari's performance as Aerith garnered a lot of scrutiny from the Final Fantasy fanbase, and after Kingdom Hearts 2 released, she was replaced by Andrea Bowen of Desperate Housewives fame, who had also appeared in Advent Children, albeit in a lesser role as she played the Moogle Girl. Now, even though Advent Children released in September of 2005 in Japan, it wouldn't be released in North America and Europe until the 25th of April 2006. It meant only 4 months separated Advent Children from the next part of the compilation, Dirge of Cerberus, and because of this, many of the actors who appeared in one also appeared in the other. But that wasn't the case for all of the roles. Whereas Steve Blum would continue as the voice of Vincent, and Chris Edgerly reprised his role of Sid Highwind, Christy Carlson Romano did not return as the voice of Yuffie Kisaragi. That role was instead fulfilled by Mae Whitman. By this point in her career, Whitman was already a household name thanks to her live acting and voiceover work. She had secured regular roles in Johnny Bravo and Chicago Hope, and won awards before even turning 10 due to her terrific performance as Maggie Taylor in the film One Fine Day. 2005, the year leading up to the release of Dirge of Cerberus, would also be pretty significant, as Whitman's character in Arrested Development became a regular feature, and she was cast as Katara in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Yuffie in Kingdom Hearts 2, where she also replaced Carlson Romano, who had voiced Yuffie in the original Kingdom Hearts. After Dirge of Cerberus, Whitman had continued to play Yuffie for over 15 years, and she had done this alongside roles such as Roxy Richter in the cult classic Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Amber in Parenthood, and voicing April O'Neil in the 2012 reboot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. However, despite returning as Yuffie in Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, Whitman does not provide the voice of Yuffie in Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, nor will she in Rebirth, as the voice will instead be provided by Susie Young. Final Fantasy The Spirits Within is now infamous amongst the fanbase and the wider movie industry as one of the biggest box office bombs in Hollywood history. But it shouldn't have been that way. Keen to make a splash, Square brought in top talent from all across Hollywood. One of the screenplay writers, Al Reinhardt, had previously co-written the critically acclaimed Apollo 13, and one of the main producers, Chris Lee, had previously served as the head of production at Columbia TriStar, overseeing movies such as Philadelphia, Jerry Maguire, and As Good as It Gets. The acquisition of top talent also extended beyond the actual production, as they also hired an all-star cast of actors. Steve Buscemi, Ving Rhames, and Ming-Na Wen were all hired in prominent roles, as was Alec Baldwin. But perhaps the most high-profile and notable casting was that of Donald Sutherland in the role of Dr. Sid. Sutherland had begun acting in the early 60s, becoming famous for his performances in countless TV and film roles, including Hawkeye Pierce in MASH in 1970 and Matthew Bennell in the iconic Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 1978. These roles had seen Sutherland nominated for numerous prestigious awards, with him winning a Primetime Emmy and Golden Globe for his portrayal as Colonel Mikhail Fetsov in the hit HBO movie Citizen X. Sutherland would state that he was drawn to The Spirits Within due to how unorthodox it was in comparison to other productions taking place at the time. Even though other companies were making animated products, Sutherland was impressed by the visuals, stating that acting in The Spirits Within was nothing like regular voiceover, and scenes would inhabit his mind for days at a time. In the years that followed, Sutherland continued to be a household name, winning another Golden Globe and being nominated for many more. He would also act in future animated productions such as Astro Boy and Jock the Hero Dog, but none will be quite like The Spirits Within. Based on how The Spirits Within turned out, the most recent theatrical release for Final Fantasy caught people around the world by complete surprise when it was announced toward the start of 2016. Kingsglaive would be positioned as a prequel to Final Fantasy XV, but despite effectively serving as promotional material for the main game, Square Enix spared no expense in getting a star-studded cast to ensure the hype stayed as high as possible. As if to emphasize this, the movie was revealed at Uncovered Final Fantasy XV by 2 of the 3 stars, with a third appearing via video message. This saw Aaron Paul and Lida Headey talk to the hosts on stage about their roles as Nyx and Luna Freya respectively, and Sean Bean, who was to play King Regis, spoke about his excitement from afar. By this point, Sean Bean was a highly celebrated actor, having played roles in some of the most iconic films and TV shows of our lifetimes. Starting his mainstream success as the Napoleonic soldier Sharp in the British TV show of the same name, Sean Bean would go on to play a James Bond villain in GoldenEye, Boromir in Lord of the Rings, and Eddard Stark in Game of Thrones. But Bean had also had roles in other video games, having voiced Martin Septim in Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, while also providing narration for Sid Meier's Civilization VI. But despite the importance of Regis as a character, within Final Fantasy XV itself, Bean did not reprise the role, as the voice was instead delivered by Jim Perry. Now, Moogles have been a long-time mascot for the Final Fantasy franchise, well known for their cute design and even cuter sounds. But following the arrival of voice acting, the role of the Moogle actually diminished. After Final Fantasy VI, this seldom saw them hold important roles. Instead, outside of Final Fantasy IX, they would often appear in small cameos such as a pseudo-guardian force in Final Fantasy VIII, Lulu's weapon in Final Fantasy X, or as the 6 siblings in Final Fantasy XII. Because of this, even though Moogles were well known for saying Kupo, there was no specific voice reference for how they sounded in normal conversation. But that all changed with Final Fantasy XIII too, as Mog was introduced as one of the supporting cast, and this meant they would need to be able to engage in regular conversation. To deliver this performance, Jack Fletcher, who was the casting director working on Final Fantasy XIII-2, turned to a rising star called Ariel Winter. By this point in her career, Winter was receiving numerous plaudits for her role as Alex Dunphy in the hit comedy series Modern Family. By the time 13.2 had released, Winter had been nominated for 4 Screen Actors Guild Awards, winning 3 of them, and she had also won a Young Artist Award for the same role. What's curious about this though is that the role of Mog wasn't Winter's first role in a Square Enix property. 3 years prior, she had voiced Marlene Wallace in Advent Children Complete, replacing Grace Rolek, who had voiced Marlene in the original version of Advent Children. And Winter would also play young Kairi in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. After the release of 13.2, Winter was then asked to reprise her role due to how much everyone had resonated with her performance. But this wasn't for the appearance of Mog in Lightning Returns. Instead, Winter played the Moogle in Type 0 HD. This would be the final collaboration between Winter and Square Enix, but alongside continuing to star in Modern Family for many, many years after, she would return to video games in 2022, playing Abby in The Quarry, which was developed by Supermassive. With so much time and effort placed around building a strong voice cast for the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, fans were shocked to learn that every role would be recast for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. But even though the decision was unexpected, it allowed a fresh group of actors to bring the characters to life in a whole new way. One of the more intriguing characters in this regard was Sephiroth. We mentioned earlier that Sephiroth was first voiced by Lance Bass and then by George Newbern. Newbern would voice the character in Advent Children, Kingdom Hearts 2, and other compilation entries for many years, and the fans grew very attached to his voice. Throughout this time, Newbern had also become known as the voice of Superman across numerous properties. And for Remake, Square Enix decided to call on another actor who was known for playing Superman, Tyler Hoechlin. Hoechlin appeared as Superman in Supergirl, and also had cameo appearances in other DC TV properties around the time, such as Arrow and The Flash. But he was a well-known actor before that, thanks to award-winning performances in the movie Road to Perdition and the TV show Seventh Heaven. Hoechlin also appeared in Teen Wolf as Derek Hale, where he appeared alongside fellow Remake cast members Cody Christian and Gideon Emery. As a new entry onto this list, much of Hoechlin's future career is still to be written. But after Remake launched, he reprised the role of Superman in a new show called Superman and Lois, which is now in its 3rd season, and he appeared in Teen Wolf, the movie. That then brings us on to our last entry, which relates to a pretty big celebrity who appeared in the Dissidia franchise. Even though Dissidia NT didn't perform quite as expected, the original 2 games were very well received. And one of the main reasons for this was that it was the first instance where we got to see all of the main protagonists and antagonists come together in a single title. From a voice acting perspective, this meant that not only did iconic voice actors return, but we also got to hear voices associated with a ton of characters from the pre-voice acting era. In this regard, the character we're going to focus on served as a throwback to the original Final Fantasy, Chaos. Appearing as the primary antagonist of Dissidia, Chaos was voiced by an actor with some extraordinary accomplishments in both film and voiceover, Keith David. David had become a household name throughout the 80s and 90s thanks to roles in iconic movies such as The Thing, Platoon, and Armageddon. He would also have a small role in The Spirits Within, credited as voicing Council Member Number 1. But outside of that role, David had also become an accomplished voice actor, appearing in Hercules, Princess Mononoke, and also serving as the voice of Spawn in the 1997 animated TV show. By the time David had appeared in Dissidia, he'd also dabbled in video game voice acting, appearing in Halo as Arbiter Thel Vadam, and perhaps most famously as David Anderson in Mass Effect. After fulfilling the role of Chaos in Dissidia, David would return as the voice of Chaos in Duodecim. But even though he has continued to be active in almost all forms of acting, even reappearing as Spawn in Mortal Kombat 11, these serve as the only Final Fantasy related credits on David's pretty incredible acting CV. Still, it's a pretty iconic role to play. With that in mind though, it's going to be interesting to see who else Square Enix decide to call on for future titles. But with that, we'd love to hear who's been your favourite celebrity to voice a Final Fantasy character over the years, so please let us know in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Alright everyone, with that, this is Daryl signing out. As always, I'd like to give a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube member supporters, especially Benjamin Snow, The Livestream, Gregory, Justin Dent, and Sukin TDK, who are super special Onion Knight supporters. And of course, a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.